Daniel was a man with big dreams. He lived in a small apartment with his wife and little son. He wanted a better life for his family. He wanted success and peace in his heart. But life was not kind. Daniel sold medical machines to doctors. The machines were large and expensive. Most doctors did not want to buy them. Every day, Daniel walked from one hospital to another, trying to sell his product. Every day, he heard the same words, "No, thank you." Money was always short. Daniel could not pay the rent. The bills kept coming. His wife, Emma, was tired. She worked long hours in a factory. She was angry, sad, and hopeless. One night, they argued loudly. Emma shouted, "I can't live like this anymore. I'm leaving." Daniel felt his world break apart. His heart hurt deeply. He wanted to cry, but his little boy looked at him with innocent eyes. Daniel knew he had to stay strong. Soon, Emma left. Daniel was alone with his son, just the two of them. No money, no help, no support. The days grew darker. The fridge was empty. Sometimes Daniel didn't eat, so his son could. Some nights they slept without light, because they couldn't pay the electricity bill. Daniel looked at his son sleeping and thought, "I can't give up. I have to fight. I must find a better life for my boy." And so, his long and painful journey began. Every morning, Daniel woke up early. He took his son to school, then walked miles across the city to sell his machines. But no one wanted to buy. Doctors said, "Too costly." Daniel carried the heavy machine through the streets, but no money came. Soon, Daniel could not pay the rent. The landlord said, "You have to leave this place." Daniel and his little boy were left with no home. That night, they went to a homeless shelter. But it was already full. Daniel carried his son through the cold streets. His boy asked softly, "Daddy, where will we sleep?" Daniel smiled, though his heart was breaking. "Don't worry, my son. I'm here." They found an empty bathroom in a train station. Daniel locked the door, sat on the floor, held his boy close, and cried silently. His son slept peacefully in his arms, but Daniel's tears kept falling. He whispered, "One day, life will be better." The next morning, they stood in a long line for food. Many poor people waited too. Daniel felt ashamed, but he stayed strong for his boy. Every day was a battle. No bed, no food, no money. Only love between father and son. Daniel told himself, "I won't give up. I'll never stop. One day happiness will come." One day, Daniel saw a man stepping out of a shiny car. The man wore a fine suit and looked successful. Daniel asked, "What do you do for a living?" The man smiled, "I'm a stockbroker." Daniel didn't understand the word, but he saw a light of hope. The man worked with money. Maybe this was the path to a better life. Later, Daniel learned about a big company that offered a training program. The program was unpaid, but if he worked hard, they might give him a real job. Daniel wanted to try. He thought, "This is my chance. Maybe my only chance." But life became even harder. He had to sell his remaining machines to buy food. He stood in long lines every day just to feed his son. Sometimes, after finishing training, he ran to the shelter before it closed. If he was late, they had no bed to sleep on. Daniel worked without rest. In the daytime, he studied numbers and phones. At night, he held his son close and whispered, "One day, we'll be happy." His hands were tired, his heart heavy, but his eyes still full of hope. The journey was long, the struggle endless, but Daniel said to himself, "I must not stop. I must not lose this chance." Daniel started his training at the big company. He wore the same old suit every day. He didn't have money for new clothes, but he always tried to stay neat and clean. The training was tough. Many smart people wanted the job. Only one would be chosen in the end. Daniel thought, "I have to be that one." In the office, he answered phone calls quickly. He studied numbers, worked hard, and tried to be better than everyone else. But when work ended, his fight was not over. He ran through the streets with his son, trying to reach the shelter before the doors closed. Many nights, they ran hand in hand, tired and hungry. Sometimes they made it in time, sometimes they slept on cold floors. One night, his son asked, "Daddy, why don't we have a home?" Daniel looked into his little boy's eyes. He smiled and said, "Because we're strong. Because we're on our way to a better life." Inside, his heart was crying, but he never let his son see his pain. Daniel was hungry, but he gave food to his boy first. Daniel was tired, but he carried the heavy machines anyway. Each day brought pain, but also hope. He told himself again and again, "Don't stop. Don't give up. Happiness is near." Days passed. Weeks passed. Daniel worked harder than ever. He wanted the job more than anyone. But life outside the office was still dark. His shoes had holes. His suit was old. Some days, he had no money for the bus and walked miles to work. At night, he stood in long lines for food, holding his son's small hand. He carried his boy when his legs were too tired to walk. Inside the company, Daniel always smiled. He didn't want anyone to see his pain. He spoke politely, worked fast, and solved problems better than others. But at home, there was no home. Only a bed in the shelter, or sometimes the cold floor of a bathroom. One evening, Daniel looked at his son sleeping. His boy held a small toy in his hand. Daniel whispered, "My little one, I promise you, one day you'll have a good life. I'll never stop fighting for you." The final day of training arrived. The manager called Daniel into his office. Daniel sat down. His heart was beating fast. Did I do enough? Or will they pick someone else? The room was silent. The air felt heavy. Daniel waited for the words that could change his life forever. His hands were shaking. He expected bad news. The manager looked at him and said softly, "Daniel, we would like to offer you the job." Daniel couldn't believe what he heard. His eyes filled with tears. For a few seconds he couldn't speak. "Me? Thank you, sir. Thank you," he whispered. He walked out of the office, stepped into the sunlight. The world looked different. The sun was shining bright, but his eyes were wet. For months, he had no home. For months, he had no money. He had cried in bathrooms, run through dark streets, carried his son through pain. And now, finally, he had a future. Daniel held his son's hand and smiled. "Daddy got the job," he said. His little boy laughed and hugged him tightly. That night, they still slept in the shelter, but everything felt different. Daniel knew tomorrow would be better. The fight was not over, but hope was real now. He whispered to himself, "This part of my life, this little part, is called happiness." Daniel's life changed. He was no longer poor. He was no longer homeless. He had a job, a home, and food for his son. He finally had peace in his heart. One evening, Daniel walked in the park with his boy. His son asked, "Daddy, are we happy now?" Daniel smiled and said, "Yes, my son. We are happy. We fought, we never gave up, and now happiness is here." Daniel learned one great truth. Life is hard, but if you stay strong, work hard, and keep hope alive, happiness will come one day. And that day was not the end of his story. It was the start of a new, brighter life.